This is the newsroom for today, Wednesday, January 27, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarzi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, GECOM hands over the original copies of all statements of poll and statements of recount to the High Court.
The law is very clear as to the duration that the CEO is to hold these records.
The Organization of American States has condemned the Venezuelan dictatorship for detaining a Guyanese fishing crew and their vessels and is calling for the prompt and safe release of the fishermen. The Chief Justice Roxanne George quashes a deportation order for the 26 Haitians and throws out an application for the case to be dismissed. In tonight's feature, we tell you about a Rassville, Georgetown resident who has mastered the art of making a Guyanese delicacy, dal puri. And in sport, athletes' safety of paramount importance at Alien Pompey Invitational, and West Indies promise positive approach to tackle Bangladesh spin threat. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We started by telling you that the Guyana Elections Commission GECOM on Wednesday handed over the original copies of all statements of poll and statements of recount from the March 2, 2020 elections to the Registrar of the Supreme Court, Suwana Lovell. GECOM has, however, retained copies of the documents. Kurt Campbell reports.
The handing over of the original copies of all statements of polls and statements of recount from the March 2, 2020 elections to the Registrar of the Supreme Court is in keeping with an order from Chief Justice Acting Senior Counsel Roxanne George instructing the Guyana Elections Commission and its Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, to have the documents handed over before January 29, 2021. Each SOP and SOR was lodged and recorded individually, a tedious process as Lowenfield explains.
I'm handing over the statements of poll. All the statements of poll that was forwarded to me during the process. This is what I'm doing.
And the statements of recount?
And also the statements of recount. So that's what's happening at the moment. I just took a water break to have a bottle of water. And I'm going back to join Miss Lovell.
There is a total of 2,339 statements of polls and another 2,339 statements of recount to be handed over to the court. Lowenfield said the GECOM Secretariat has made copies of the documents to keep for its records. Lowenfield said the law specifies that the records are kept by the Chief Elections Officer for a prescribed period. However, although that timeline has not expired, he was following the orders of the Chief Justice.
The law is very clear as to the duration that the CEO is to hold these records. It's very clear. However, if the Chief Justice has ruled, then the CEO has to acquiesce to the ruling of the Chief Justice.
Are you keeping copies for yourself or the Secretary? No.
Obviously, I won't give away all that I have.
Lowenfield was present at the High Court Wednesday morning along with Chairman of GECOM, Justice Retired Claudette Singh. Also present were GECOM Commissioners Says Gunraj, Vincent Alexander, and Desmond Trotman. The Chief Justice made the order to allow for the safekeeping of the documents, which will likely support arguments in the upcoming elections petition case. Justice George made the order after dismissing the second elections petition 99P of 2020, filed by the opposition of Partnership for National Unity and an Alliance for Change, APNU-AFC coalition, while keeping the first petition 88P of 2020. The SOPs and SORs are expected to serve as evidence when the case is heard. The SOR also include observation report, which the coalition said it intends to rely on to prove its case. But although it intends to use the observation reports from the recount, the coalition is still withholding its copies of statements of polls. In March 2020, High Court Judge Franklin Holder had refused an application made to him for GECOM to produce in the court the SOPs for District 4, Guyana's largest voting district, which was embroiled in controversy and led to a national recount of all votes cast and a 5-month delay in announcing the real winner of the March 2nd elections. Having only served one term in office, the coalition lost the elections and claimed widespread voter fraud at the polls but refused to release their copies of the SOPs to prove its claims. The recount figures show that the People's Progressive Party Civic PPPC won the elections by over 15,000 more votes than the coalition. For the newsroom, I'm Kurt Campbell.
Now, the delegation of several member countries of the Organization of American States, the OAS, on Wednesday joined with the General Secretariat in condemning the illegal detention of 2 Guyanese-registered fishing vessels and their crew by the Venezuelan dictatorship, even though the crew was within Guyana's exclusive economic zone. The issue made its way onto the agenda of a virtual meeting of the Permanent Council of the OAS on Wednesday. Member states first heard from Guyana's permanent representative to the OAS, Ambassador Riyad Int'l, who apprised them of this latest developments, including the January 2020 decree by President Nicolás Maduro and the detention of the 12-member Guyanese fishing crew. The delegations in turn demanded that the Guyanese citizens are released promptly and safely to Guyanese authorities, as well as the 2 detained vessels. Moreover, the General Secretariat reiterated its support for the rules and processes set by international law regarding ongoing territorial conflicts.
Mr. Maduro's decree is patently absurd and a decidedly unneighborly and hostile act. This effort by Venezuela to attempt unilaterally to withdraw its borders and annex Guyana's land and maritime areas is a legal nullity and an act of aggression, which should not and cannot be tolerated by any other state in the world. But there is worse, Madam Chair. On Thursday, January 21st, 2021, 2 Guyanese registered fishing vessels, the Lady Nayera and the Seawolf, operating off the coast of Winey Point within Guyana's exclusive economic zone, were intercepted by the Venezuelan naval vessel Comandante Hugo Chavez GC-24. The Guyanese civilian captains were instructed to chart a course to Port Guayana in Venezuela, where the boats and crews have been detained and to date have not been released. Guyana, Madam Chair, is a peace-loving country, respectful of the rule of international law. We highly appreciate the support we continue to receive from the international community, in particular from the CARICOM family and the OAS General Secretariat.
We joined both the CARICOM governments and the General Secretariat of the OAS in calling for an end to any aggression against Guyana by Venezuela and for the immediate release by Venezuela of the civilian crew members and vessels they are now detaining. Further, we remind that the border of Guyana and Venezuela was settled 121 years ago by an 1899 arbitration of distinguished jurists and was accepted by all parties, including Venezuela.
And we call for the immediate release of the Guyanese vessels and crew. The United States supports a peaceful resolution to the Guyana-Venezuela maritime boundary controversy. We welcome the December 18th judgment concerning jurisdiction by the International Court of Justice, and we will continue to follow this case closely.
The Brazilian government reasserts its commitment to favor a peaceful solution to the territorial dispute between Guyana and Venezuela, underscoring the importance of the respect for the principle of territorial integrity within the framework of international law, as well as the need for the parties to avoid any action that would jeopardize peace and security in the region.
Now, the Ministry of Health has announced that 3 more persons have died from COVID-19 between Tuesday and Wednesday. On Tuesday, a 74-year-old from Region 10 and a 58-year-old from Region 4 died while receiving care at a medical facility. On Wednesday, a 65-year-old male from Region 5 also died while receiving treatment. The total deaths recorded since Guyana's first case in March 2020 is now 175, of which 11 have died for the month so far. The Chief Justice quashes a deportation order for the 26 Haitians and throws out an application for the case to be dismissed. The court dismisses the appeal of a rapist serving 7 years behind bars, and the Minister of Local Government halts the cutting down of century-old rubber trees in Mabaruma. Those and more when the newsroom returns. This is the newsroom. Police are investigating the murder of Carl To, only name given, who was found dead with his head bashed in early Wednesday morning at Camp and Rob Streets in Georgetown. Police headquarters in a statement noted that the victim is estimated to be about 45 years old. The 27-year-old suspect of Toucan Drive, South Rampville, Georgetown, was arrested by police at a location in Charlotte Street. A security officer who was in the vicinity of where the murder occurred revealed that the suspect picked up a brick and dealt the victim, who was sleeping on the roadway, several lashes to the head at around 3 hours 30. The bodies are at the Lykin's funeral home awaiting a post-mortem examination. The Chief Justice acting Roxanne George on Wednesday wrapped up the Haitian deportation case, in which he quashed on December 1, 2020 order by the principal magistrate Shardel Isaacs for 26 Haitians to be deported, and also dismissed an application by Attorney General Int'l for the matter to be thrown out. Justice George has also refused to grant an order for the referral of the matter to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Kurt Campbell joins us now.
26 Haitians, 10 men, 9 women, and 7 children had approached the High Court on December 3, 2020 through their lawyer Darren Wade and had the deportation order halted by Chief Justice acting Roxanne George. Principal Magistrate Shardel Isaacs Marcus had ordered that the nationals be taken to the nearest port of exit and deported on the grounds that they violated Guyana's immigration laws. In her ruling on Wednesday, which disposes of the case, Justice George said a breach of natural justice occurred when the deportation order was issued by Magistrate Isaac Marcus. The Chief Justice said the Haitians who were detained by the state at the time should have been taken to court to be heard, but they were not. She said the order breached Articles 139 and 148 of the Constitution, which deals with the deprivation and personal liberty and a person's freedom of movement, respectively. In addition, the Chief Justice ruled that there was insufficient evidence to prove that Articles 141, 142, 143, 144, and 149 of the Constitution were not upheld in the detention of the Haitians. Those articles deal with inhumane and degrading punishment, the seizing of property, unauthorized searches, the affording of a fair hearing, and discriminatory treatment. In so ruling, Justice George said that all orders sought, including for referral of the matter to the CCJ and for damages, are not granted. She said with the release of the Haitians since the halting of the deportation, no order is made in relation to cost. Before a ruling was handed down, Justice George had to first throw out an application brought before her by Int'l to strike out the case. Int'l had submitted a recording to the court in which the applicant, Alejandrez Archer, can be heard saying that he was tricked into signing the court document on behalf of the Haitians, which first brought the case to light at the High Court. The proceedings were initially filed by Archer for and on behalf of the 26 Haitians, contending that the breach of fundamental rights of the individuals had occurred when they were placed in protective custody at the Hugo Chavez Center for Rehabilitation and Reintegration. But Archer later claimed that he never agreed to file the case on behalf of the Haitians. But Justice George in a ruling said it was also clear that the recording that Archer clearly understood that he could have sought legal advice and filed a notice of withdrawal, something that he has not done. The Chief Justice said given that Archer was part of the court hearing before, she does not consider Int'l's application to have merit. She insisted that Archer should have filed a notice of withdrawal. During the case, the state's treatment of the Haitian nationals who were detained and taken into protective custody on suspicions of human trafficking and smuggling were called into question. Int'l always maintained that the Haitians entered Guyana simply as a transient point to enter other countries unlawfully. He said it was while detained that the state learned that they also furnished immigration officers with misleading information. No one knows the whereabouts of the Haitians since they released from custody of the state on December 9, 2020. In the affidavits released by the Attorney General's chambers, the state, through sworn statements by 3 police detectives, maintained that the Haitian nationals lied to immigration officers about where they would be staying while in the country when they arrived in Guyana on November 7, 2020. This, the state maintained, is a violation of its immigration laws.
Thank you, Kurt. Now, the Court of Appeal on Wednesday upheld the conviction and sentencing of Kenrick Morrison, who was serving a 7-year jail term for the rape of a child. He was released on bail in 2016, pending the outcome of the appeal, and has now been ordered to surrender himself to the authorities. In 2015, Morrison was found guilty by a 12-member jury of the offense, which stated that on February 12, 2013, he engaged in sexual activity with a child under the age of 16. He was subsequently sentenced by the trial judge, Joanne Barlow, at the High Court in Georgetown. In his appeal filed by Attorney at Law Mark Conway, Morrison, among other things, argued that the trial judge misdirected the jurors and made several errors while summing up the evidence. The judge was accused of being unbalanced in the summation. Morrison also claimed that the indictment was bad in law and that he was charged under the wrong section of the Sexual Offences Act. The appeal was heard by Chancellor Acting Janet Cummings Edwards, Justice Don Gregory, and Justice Rishi Prasad. The Chancellor, who delivered the ruling, said that the court did not find that the trial judge erred in law and there was no miscarriage of justice. She then dismissed the appeal and told Morrison to surrender himself to the authorities to serve his sentence. According to reports, Morrison is known to the victim and her family. He reportedly dragged the child into his house, kissed her, and fondled her private parts. The victim managed to escape and confided in her parents. The matter was reported to the police and Morrison was arrested. Now, the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Nigel Dharamlal, has instructed the Mayor and Town Council of Mabaruma and the Region 1 administration to halt the cutting down of century-old rubber trees, which have been a hallmark of the town. The Town Council and the Regional Administration had said that the cutting down of the trees was to facilitate the construction of a road. The authorities had claimed that they had carried out consultations with residents who had agreed that the trees pose a danger to them. Along with his instruction to stop the cutting down of the trees, Dharamlal ordered that the results of the consultation done under the last government, along with the names of persons and bodies participating, be published. He has also instructed that the authorities discuss with the Ministry of Public Works the best engineering solution to have the road constructed with the trees remaining. Now, what happened at Lusignan, East Coast Demerara in the wee hours of January 26, 2008 must never happen again. This was the sentiments shared by political leaders during the observance of the 13th anniversary of the massacre that rocked the nation over a decade ago. During the memorial service on Tuesday at Lusignan, the politicians called for national unity and reconciliation. Isnel Patwa reports.
The notorious Rondell Fineman Rawlins led a gang of men with high-powered rifles through Track A, Lusignan, East Coast Demerara, 13 years ago and brutally shot 5 children who were sleeping in their beds, along with their parents and others. 11 persons died that day. Fineman, the most wanted criminal at that time, 1 month after the tragedy, murdered 12 persons at Bartica, Region 7. A couple of months after this, Fineman and 2 of his gang members were gunned down by police and soldiers. Those killed at Lusignan were 48-year-old Clarence Thomas, his 12-year-old daughter Vanessa Thomas, and his 11-year-old son Ron Thomas. 32-year-old Mohandai Gordat, her 2 sons, 10-year-old Sigopal Harilal and 4-year-old Sigobin Harilal. 52-year-old Danwaji Ramsingh and her adopted daughter, 11-year-old Rewati Ramsingh. 52-year-old Shalim Bashk, Sicharam Bruplal, 56, and 22-year-old Shazam Mohammed. The brutalities of that night will forever be etched into the memories of the families that lost loved ones. The Indian Action Committee on Tuesday hosted the annual Remembrance Day for the lives lost and was applauded for their continuous support to the grieving families. The event was attended by leaders from the Christian, Hindu, and Muslim communities who all prayed for the families and the community. Speaking at the event was Minister of Public Works Juan Edgell, who stated that the mass killing was not a crime of passion, but was premeditated, racially and politically motivated.
In the wee hours of that morning, men clad themselves with military-like fatigues and equipment and machine guns, and moved from a destination through the fields into this grass field and premeditatedly killed men, women, and worst of all, children.
Member of Parliament for the opposition APNU-AFC coalition Ganesh Mahipal, during remarks, also urged political and religious leaders, civil society leaders and community leaders to work together in bridging the gap with racism in Guyana.
For too long, politicians like myself and even the ones that are sitting there have been sounding the call and say we're one people, one nation, one destiny. But it is now time for us to ensure that we prove to Guyana, we prove to the Caribbean, we prove to the Western Hemisphere, we prove to the world that indeed we are one people, one nation, one destiny.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips said that despite fear and frustration all these years, the community of Lusignan remains steadfast and has managed to grieve and keep the memory of those killed.
As your Prime Minister, I salute the strength of you, the people of Lusignan. You, the people who will not give up. You, the people who daily display the determination of moving forward while honoring the lives of your loved one that were lost in the massacre.
Speaking to those gathered, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Int'l stated that the massacre scarred the psyche of the nation permanently. He called for introspection and reflection to see whether, as a society, we have learned anything from the incident. The Attorney General stated that the country has failed miserably, as not a single person who perpetrated the acts nor the intellectual authors of the event have been convicted by the legal system for this tragedy. He warned that circumstances and the underlying factors which gave rise to the massacre still exist in society today. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Isanella Patwo.
When the newsroom returns, we tell you about a Rasville, Georgetown resident who has mastered the art of making a Guyanese delicacy, dal puri. This is the Newsroom. Now, police are investigating the armed robbery committed on 32-year-old Junior December, who was attacked by two bandits at his store in Cornelia Ida on the west coast of Demerara on Tuesday. Police headquarters in a statement noted that a businessman who resides at La Jealousy was at his mini-mart when the two bandits entered and pointed a gun at him at around 18:55. They relieved him of $60,000 in cash, a gold ring valued $20,000, a Redmi Note 8 Pro valued $65,000, and a quantity of Digicel and GT&T phone cards valued $15,000. The victim claimed that one of the men fired a shot while escaping. Investigations are ongoing. The Ministry of Health has granted approval for a number of hospitals and other health institutions across the country to conduct COVID-19 rapid antigen testing. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony revealed on Wednesday during his daily COVID-19 update that two private hospitals, the Dr. Balwant Singh and Woodlands, were already given approval to do antigen testing. This type of test takes 20 minutes to produce results and is cheaper than the PCR test.
Because the antigen test is a simpler test to do, the Ministry of Health, through its technical division, has been able to go around to a number of health institutions, people who have traditionally been providing health care, such as the Balwant Singh Hospital and Woodlands and so forth, and review whether or not they have the capabilities of doing antigen testing. And all of them that we have published have agreed that they're able to do it. They have been doing it. And so we have now licensed them to be able to do these tests. If they have a positive test from the testing that they've been doing, they have an obligation to report that to the Ministry of Health so that we can be able to follow those persons up and so forth. So there's also a protocol if somebody tested positive. And of course, if they have a negative test and they're testing themselves for purposes of traveling, then they can present themselves to the authorities at the airport. We are going to continue to expand that list as we review more places, and we also want to certify regional facilities where this type of testing can be done. So this is an ongoing thing. During this week, they have also visited a number of other facilities, and they will continue to do so next week as well. And we'll update the current list that we have.
The Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, on Tuesday visited Windsor Forest, where he met with residents to discuss issues of importance to them. Among the topics that came up for discussion was the creation of some 3,000 jobs in West Demerara. Sheena Henry reports.
The minister was accompanied by officials and representatives of the various departments of the ministry. Like the other outreaches since he took office in August 2020, this one was intended to have an open discussion with residents on their concerns and how the ministry can address them.
So raise your issue of concern and we'll deal with it and see how we can work together to form a partnership so that we can try to resolve all the problems.
The minister explained that the issues at hand are still relevant, noting that the agriculture sector has been neglected over the years.
We all lose hope feeling that this sector is a sector that is going down the drain and we will not come back. But I want to tell you that as long as this government, the PPP civic government is in office, the agriculture sector will be one of the most important sectors for us.
He explained that among the many commitments the sector has made, works are underway regarding the reopening of sugar estates.
Major commitments. One of the major ones was to reopen closed sugar estates. We have already started, work are in progress. And you'll ask me that why we are not opening Wales. We have committed to open all the closed sugar estates. We have started at Rose Hall, Skeldon, and Enmore. We can't reopen Wales because you have to have a new factory. And that's called for a major investment. So we have a major investment coming on Wales that will create over 3,000 jobs for people on the west coast and west bank of Demerara.
He further explained the ministry's course of action over the next 5 years.
What we intend to do in the next 5 years, we want to double that. How we can double that? In this year's budget, we'll be working on the second phase of the MMA scheme. So we'll have almost 100 acres of new land open up there. We are building an Alweda Road in Region 3. That Alweda Road will open up another 10,000 acres of land right here in Region 3. We are doing a new road in 5274 on the quarantine. It was in the newspaper not so long ago. I met with the farmers there last week, Wednesday, the Attorney General and myself. Another 10,000 acres of land will be opened up in the Bordis area.
Reporting for the newsroom, I'm Sheena Henry.
And the Guyana National Bureau of Standards in 2020 established a laboratory which now has the capacity to facilitate the testing of concrete hollow blocks made locally. Danica Paul has the details in this report.
Public Relations Officer of the GNBS, Lloyd David, commenting recently on the facility, spoke of the need to have established standards in the construction sector.
It is a very important process and service because we believe that concrete block makers need to understand the compressive strength of the blocks that they are making. And of course, ultimately, this will benefit the consumers because they will not have to buy blocks that are defective or weak in strength.
David explained that the GNBS has received complaints in the past about the quality of blocks produced locally. Hence, the move to build capacity through training and the purchase of equipment to conduct the relevant tests. Essentially, the GNBS is calling on all block makers to submit their samples for testing, assuring that it is a simple process and block owners will receive a certificate upon completion of these tests. David mentioned that the testing will take 3 to 5 days and it will allow block makers to get a gauge of the strength of the blocks they're manufacturing and whether they need to make adjustments.
Yes, in terms of testing, a person, a supplier, a manufacturer can supply at least 1 to 5 blocks for testing, right? But for certification, the standards require 10 blocks for testing as a sample.
With this initiative, the GNBS is aiming for all block makers to conform to the national standards. In addition, the GNBS wishes for all consumers and block owners to benefit from these free testing and certification program. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Danica Paul.
Dal puri is a popular delicacy among Guyanese, and a father of 12, 66-year-old Tony Favorite, a resident of Rasville, Georgetown, has mastered the art of puri making. After decades in the business, Favorite has been described as the best puri man. During an interview with the newsroom on Wednesday at his puri shop in Rasville, Favorite explained that he learned the trade from his father, which he has now passed on to his children. In the early 1990s, Favorite saw an opportunity to make a living from making puri, and he took the bold step to leave the Guyana Police Force after 6 years and started his own business. Favorite now makes about 1,000 puris per day, which is on high demand at his 2 puri shops nearby. With the help of his youngest son Kenny and 3 youths from the community, Favorite said they start making puri from as early as 4 a.m. every day. He also shared how he has managed to maintain a high standard all these years.
want to make way for my father. I actually born into it. That is the only job I know, making puri and to play music at the other jukebox. Well, I've been doing it as a business for a long time, but not to this scale. I was a policeman. I stationed the president, yeah, the station there. I still used to make that puri on my duty days and take it there and catch my hand. Because I had a small shop in Lodge. I used to make that puri there too. And that's since in the 70s we're talking about. But then I had to stop by textile. I had to snap it by textile. Then textile closed off, so I had to close it down. Then I left and went to Barbados, Trinidad rather, in 1984. I actually spent a year there making that puri for some people named Mangold. Him go to Spain, Del Monte area. I used to do it in Barbados too. Well, after coming back from Barbados in 1990, I started working and selling here in Guyana. And the customers them now take the puri and they stop me actually from going out on the road. Because they start coming in for the puri. So the rest is history. They keep evolving. Because it was a small wooden building at first, like a kind of shop. And it developed it to reach to this farm, you know. But, you know, the business keep improving, so I have to step up standards, you know, so that's to facilitate the customers. Doing what you know, always more profitable than, you know what I mean, gotta go and sell your labor at a place, which is good, nothing wrong with that. But to meet your demand and able to develop yourself at the rate that you would like to, you know, it's best to do what you know. If you're to great quality, yeah, it's best to do what you know. I maintain my father's standard. He had a good standard. Years ago when he used to work, he was in competition with a man in Shanto. He had a corner at the Market Street corner. He was a plaza. So they always got a competition. And he always had a good standard because he always had a portion of customers who just come and look for him personally. Yeah, an old customer come the other day and buy puri and telling me, he said, when you eat this puri, remember my father. What he's got to do is make certain that you don't take away the dull taste. Because some people just put mild man pork and fine leaf thyme and a lot of things that we put into the peas just to up the flavor. But if you know to balance the spices, and make sure that you don't take away the dal flavor from the dal, because all the time it's dal puri, not puri. Well, peas until you start boiling since 4 o'clock in the morning, because everything that you see usually is fresh. You don't make nothing overnight. You understand? So to get our one kick off, I do everything from morning to morning. My son works on Sundays. He controls. He's the boss on Sunday. But during the week he works with me. And he's the boss on Sunday. I taught any work. Most of my children know the work. You understand? Even though some of them work in government and different things, but most of them know this work. When he comes, he stick by me. Just I bless the strength that God has given unto me. You understand? And I respect what I learned from my father. You understand? And I hope that my son will come and carry it on and carry it to another standard. Because I'm moving from one level to another level. I hope my son carry it on to that level.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off with some athletics news. While it has received support from the Minister of Sport, the Alien Pompey Invitational will focus a great deal on the safety of athletes when the event is held on June 19 at the National Track and Field Center at Leonora. Founder of the meet, the former national athlete and 4-time Olympian Alien Pompey, said they will continue to engage health authorities in Guyana on protocols to be followed to host a safe event. Pompey also informed the discussions with potential sponsors have already started.
I've already had conversations and correspondences with the Honorable Minister Charles Ramsden Jr., and he's very supportive of the endeavor and very supportive of the meet. And we have a few new features to roll out for the 2021 edition of the competition that we haven't had in the past, which, you know, I'll be excited to share with in the future. We're still very early in the planning and implementation phase, and with everything moving as quickly as it probably will, with the vaccine being available and health protocols and requirements changing over time, we're not sure what the testing and quarantine requirements and protocols would be, you know, a month from now, much less 5 months from now. So we're working out those details to see what would be required. Our sponsors have played a huge role in the success of the meet, and I think in 2021, when for the ones that do agree to move forward with us, you know, they'll be very, very important in providing these opportunities for our athletes, as well as the athletes in the region. And so we'll be looking again for our sponsors to meet us where they have in the past in terms of their support and help us ensure that we have a bigger and better API.
Cricket news now. In West Indies' last test to Bangladesh in November 2018, the host spinners took all 40 wickets in the 2 test matches, where West Indies' highest team total was 246. Much of the same is expected, and Vice-Captain Jermaine Blackwood says the batsmen will look to be positive. Akim Green reports.
That's true. We probably need to play spin better. But as I said earlier, I can see the work and the determination from the batsman in the couple of weeks that we have been here. We have been working a lot. The guys are working a lot and, you know, doing a lot of sweeping, do a lot of you know, just to get the rotation of strike and all that. So I can see the positive, and hopefully, well, I know for sure in the test match you guys are gonna see it as well, because I know these players here are very hungry for runs, and, you know, hungry to just go there and put their best foot forward and score runs. And I back them, and we're very confident. I'm very confident in everyone that we're gonna score runs, both off the spin and off the pace bowlers.
The 29-year-old has had a purple patch since his return a year ago, averaging over 42, which is considerably higher than his career average of just over 32. He lamented that a positive mindset will bode him well, even in defense.
You have to look to score. My plan is to look to score, because once you look to score, you're gonna be positive in whatever you do in defense or trying to attack or whatever. So I'm just looking to score at all times.
West Indies will have 4 enforced changes to the core of their batting group, who played the last test in December. Darren Bravo, Shamar Brooks, Roston Chase, and Jason Horner are absent, and it means there is all likelihood for at least 2 debutants in the first test against Bangladesh on February 3rd. Newsroom Sport questioned whether the Jamaican would want to move out of his usual number 6 position to add greater solidity to the top order.
Well, I'm comfortable wherever the captain and the coach want to put me to bat. I don't have a problem. So if they want to move me up, I don't have any problem. If they want to keep me at 6, I really don't have any problem. So I'm a confident guy. I'm open for anything. Whatever the team need, I will just put my hand up.
Having arrived in Bangladesh on January 10th, Blackwood said he's very eager to get on the field and perform after some solid preparation. For the Newsroom, Akim Green.
And consistency and being positive in approach are key elements if West Indies are to do well in the upcoming 2 test matches against Bangladesh. That's the view of fast bowler Kemar Roach. Speaking at a virtual press conference this week, the experienced Roach touched on what is required for the Caribbean side to excel in what he deemed as tough conditions. The test matches will start on February 3 and 11.
Obviously, the test series is upon us now, and the one-day series didn't go as we would have liked. But I just want you to reiterate, will we see a different West Indies from the one that took part in the ODI series?
Yeah, I hope so. I think, yeah, obviously the one-day series didn't go as well as we would like, but I have to understand that it was a very young team, a lot of inexperience in that team. So it was just a learning curve for those guys, obviously, to take it back home and obviously learn from that experience and then improve their games and come back stronger. But for the test team, I'm sure that the guys here, a couple guys have been here before. We know what to expect. So I expect the guys to go out there, obviously, and give a better showing, put out a better fight, and obviously set a winning games for the West Indies.
Right. And how can we nullify Bangladesh's they're going to come hard at us. They have the confidence coming out of the ODI series. What different will we need to do?
Just be positive. Obviously, coming to Bangladesh is always a tough tour. So it's all about us being positive and obviously trying to execute our plans as best as we can. I think the guys have been working hard. We've been working for a very long time as well. We've been practicing all this like 3 weeks. So the conditions are becoming adaptable and we understand what we need to do, obviously, to put a good score on the board and obviously take 20 wickets in a match. So it's all about us going out there, as I said, giving it our best shot and just putting a good show.
This is your third test tour of Bangladesh. What is the secret for fast bowlers to do well in Bangladesh? I mean, it must be a lot of hard work to bowl here. Is it short spells? Is it a length, or is it what do you think it is that could make you successful? You, Shannon, and Alzari.
Yeah, as I said, it is hard work for fast bowlers on here. The pitches aren't conducive to speed or any seam movement, so it's all about being consistent, putting the ball in the right areas. That is a pretty straight length, challenging the batsman on the front foot. That's mainly what your best chances are to succeed in Bangladesh. Working on the ball as hard as you can, trying to get the ball to reverse as early as you can to trouble the middle order of the Bangladeshi batsmen. So I think, yeah, there's a lot going into it, a lot of planning that needs to be done, a lot of execution that needs to be done, but it's all about being consistent and just believing in yourself and putting up a good fight, as I said. So yeah, my work is cut out. I'm very, very, very sure about that. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Still in cricket, Hayden Walsh Jr. has returned 2 negative COVID-19 PCR tests and has been released from isolation and cleared to travel. The West Indies leg spinner was diagnosed with the coronavirus ahead of the start of the one-day international series against Bangladesh. He remained in Dhaka and underwent a period of self-isolation in accordance with medical protocols. Following his recovery, Walsh was given the all-clear to travel and left Bangladesh on Tuesday with the other members of the ODI squad following the end of the third and final match. He will now travel back to Antigua and join the Leeward Islands Hurricane squad as they prepare for the start of the CG Insurance Super 50 Cup. Leewards played the opening match against the Windward Islands Volcanoes at the Coolidge Cricket Ground on Sunday, February 7. The tournament runs until Saturday, February 27. Now, the 2021 IPL player auction will be held on February 18 in Chennai, the league announced with a tweet on Wednesday. The announcement comes after the IPL Governing Council meeting on January 6, where it was decided that the 2021 edition of the tournament would remain an 8-team event. With the second test of the India-England series scheduled to end on February 17, the first 2 tests are in Chennai and the last 2 in Ahmedabad. February 18 presents the organizers with a day-long window to conduct the auction. The 8 franchises had announced their list of retained and released players by the deadline of January 20. It is, however, not yet certain if the tournament would be held in India. The 3-member governing council, headed by British Patel, deliberated on the matter in that meeting at the start of the year and kept their options open. With the COVID-19 pandemic continuing to surge in India, it is understood that the United Arab Emirates, where the 2020 edition was held, remained as one of the options. And Pakistan's Fawad Alam hit his 3rd test century as Pakistan established an 88-run lead on the second day of the first test against South Africa. Fawad, who returned to Pakistan's squad in 2019 after more than a decade-long absence, reached 109 of 245 balls as the host made 308 in Karachi. Pakistan had lost 4 late wickets for 33 runs on an enthralling opening day. But Azhar Ali and Fahim Ashraf both made 50s as Pakistan recovered to surpass South Africa's opening day 220. The 2-match series marks South Africa's first trip to Pakistan in 14 years after a deadly 2009 attack on Sri Lanka's team halted visits by foreign sides. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page, and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.